Fantastic to have you back. Hope all is well at your end, your family and employees of L&T. I hope that everything is fine there.
Nikun, thank you very much. I hope you and all your families and all the staff members and lovely people in ET Now are all fine, safe, and doing good. Good to be back on your channel and a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Okay, I'll start with a very basic question that what is your understanding of the economic impact of the lockdown? There are a lot of opinions floating around, which is that the current year will be a washout year, and there are some opinions which are also indicating that the lockdown or unlock 0.10 has been smooth, things are coming back to normalcy. So what is your big picture assessment?
This is something which is unknown and something which is not even made in movies, which has happened. We've seen the Godzilla, we've seen Martian invasions, we've seen nuclear catastrophes in movies, but we're not seeing anything like a pandemic going and shutting down the earth. And for the first time, maybe since Homo sapiens were, as we call them, as we call ourselves, come to be dominating the earth, we all been paranoid about what's happening. One has to still understand it, as I said, to take it forward. But as one sees it, I think after 3-4 months of this going around the world now and last 2 months in our country, I think we are sort of getting used to it, that this is something which we got to take it forward, live with, and maybe be even mentally prepared that such things will occur again in the future. I hope it doesn't, but one has to be mentally prepared for it.
Fair point. So let's understand how things have moved for L&T. Have things come back to normal? L&T operates at about 1,000 sites. How many of those sites have been opened again? And on the entire labor issue, especially because of migrant labor, are you facing shortage of laborers, at least on your current and proposed sites? Because I understand that you got about 200,000 laborers. How many of them have come back? How many of them never went?
So to give you some idea about labor, which is the most sensible thing to look at us at pre-COVID levels, maybe we had about 230 odd thousand laborers on our rolls. I guess when it goes to peak, we need about 250,000, but we had about 230,000 people on our rolls. And as I said, these things have started happening, and some of the labor left the site, and just about at the COVID state, we had about 160,000 laborers with us, and these labor were kept in our labor camps, were there in our sites and various other locations, and some of our factory locations too. And we housed them, we took care of them, we paid them their wages, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner was done. Proper SOPs were put into all these labor camps to help them maintain cleanliness and sanitation and so on and so forth. And happy to report that very few positive cases and any other incidences. At the moment when the unlocking started, or when some amount of unlocking started, let me say that the labor strength came down to at about 79,000, and the movement of labor towards the eastern part of the country took place. Many of them wanted to go back to their families, their relatives, or their houses in villages and towns. To a certain extent, I think there was also a psychological requirement to go back, because to have a human being, as I said, locked up for 2 months is not easy. At the moment, we have brought our labor strength back to about 120,000. We need to go back to 220,000 to get back to where we were. I guess it's work in progress.
Now, the international business accounts for nearly 20% of your total business. The coronavirus surely has impacted all major geographies also. Are we in for a big contraction for L&T in coming quarters on the international front, and especially the parts of Middle East or the regions which are connected to crude, which in a sense has been a big area of focus for L&T?
So global for us in 3 places. It's predominantly it's Middle East, a certain extent in Africa now, and to a far lesser extent in Far East. Let's not talk too much about Far East, because it's local laborers and not too many of them there. Our turnover there is not much. So it's predominantly Middle East and totally dominantly is Middle East, and to a certain extent is Africa. From Middle East point of view, yes, there was a double whammy there. There was this oil price crisis, which at one point of time even crashed oil prices to $10. And you had stories about tankers filled with crude floating around and all that. And apart from that is the fact that the corona crisis also hit Middle East. Luckily for us, Middle East, the Ministry of Health in all these countries, and we work in, as you know, in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Oman predominantly. So these countries had excellent system where the Ministry of Health got into act. They enforce a lot of discipline in terms of the rules and various yardstick to be followed. Most of the works are started or in an advanced stage of moving forward from original pre-COVID levels. In Africa, we are mainly in the north and the eastern countries, as you know. We call it Africa, but as you know, it's nearly 4 or 5 times India's size. So these are large, huge countries. In much of these countries, there has been some effect of corona, but not to that extent that one needs to be worried about. But the governments there have been on high publicity, requesting people to be calm and collected and be in the houses. So there were some disruptions. Not too many cases there, so we have been able to take it forward from that point of view. So this is the scenario in international.
So are you in a slightly difficult spot? Because international business will see its own share of volatility. Private sector right now does not have the ability or the appetite to really take a lot of risk. The animal spirits in the private sector are missing. State orders have dipped because states are also prioritizing other expenditure. Now, there are a couple of factors which have come together. If I may use the word perfect storm, is it a perfect storm for you?
You have swept the entire world with your question, but I'll try to go part by part on it. So first, let's take domestic. Domestic, as you know, that 80% of our orders is from central government, state government, and public sector. State and public sector are the maximum. Central government is relatively less, and 20% is private sector. This has been the trend last few years, and there's nothing much that has changed in it. Now, in this 80% of so-called central government, state government, and public sector, nearly 35% is multilateral funded jobs. That means from World Bank or ADB funded or JICA, JBIC, and things like that. And therefore, what you're talking about is about 50% of the jobs which are directly funded by the central, state, and public sector units. Now here, as you know, we have a backlog of nearly 3,000 crores, and this is a fairly big backlog. And most of the jobs are in the beginning in say 10 to 25% range, and some of it is in the later stages, middle and later stages. And therefore, the movement on us right now is to keep pushing these jobs and progress, bill and collect our money, and that is what the attempt that is on. In Middle East, some of the very major jobs that we are doing have come to a conclusion. The petrochemical plant in Yanbu, the oil field services near Abu Dhabi, the stadium in Qatar, the Doha Metro. Riyadh Metro maybe has still got another year to go. Some of the jobs in Oman are going on. There are a large number of power transmission, distribution, and water jobs going on. Now, coming to India on that score, we feel that there are certain businesses in our overall as an organization, when you look at it, businesses like heavy civil, which does metros and hydel projects and port projects, etc., seems to have very good prospects. Power transmission seems to have good prospects. Similarly, water seems to have very good prospects. We do water treatment, waste treatment, and lift irrigation and schemes like that. They seem to have very good prospects. Now, rest of the business, as of the moment, does not mean they do not have prospects. Look a bit dull from that point of view. But I guess as we come back to normality, things will come back to what it was before the pre-COVID levels, which was a growing economy from that point of view. But at the moment, we see some slowdown in those kind of situations.
A question on, let's say, on behalf of shareholders of L&T. Now, given some of the concerns we've discussed, the L&T stock has been in front of the firing squad because activity has stopped. You've not given a guidance going forward. How can a shareholder understand that what is the way forward for L&T at a time when a reboot has happened, A, to the world, and B, to your business?
You got to look at a brand like L&T as a trusted brand. is an 82-year-old company, and it's a nation builder. It's a pensioner stock. It's a safe stock. When you're in crisis, when you have natural calamities, when you have dangers all around you, what do? You put your money in a very safe bank. So I guess shareholders and other stakeholders how to look to L&T from that point of view. And I guess they would tend to look to L&T from that point of view. With a 3,03,000 crore backlog, with prospects very much there, and the company being what it is with fairly reasonable cash reserves, and recently we also taken some money from a safety point of view, and with businesses fairly diversified under one umbrella. I think one should look at it as a way to keep your money safe, look at it from a long-term point of view, and not to take knee-jerk reactions. Therefore, from my point of view, when you have cash, when you know how to think through such situations and deal with it in a calm, cool, and collected manner, the brand, one tends to trust a brand, and one tends to trust a good name like Larsen & Toubro. And in my opinion, and my advice to all our shareholders is to be calm, be cool, be collected, and be positive about what you are with Larsen & Toubro.
Go back to the ultimate question, which is when will growth come back for L&T? FY21 will be in washout year. You've not given a guidance. Will a mean reversion happen in FY22 because the base effect would also kick in? So the bottom line is that everybody wants to know when will real growth come back for L&T?
See, let's analyze it in 2-3 different manners. We lost a bit of sales this year. We could have done well by another 6,000 to 7,000 crores. We had a bit of a phenomenon in India when some of the state governments changed, like that happened in Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. We lost a bit of momentum because certain, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, there was a relook at where the capital ought to be. The original capital was at Amaravati, and the previous regime was going all out to develop Amaravati. We had picked up some orders there. And when that change in attitude took place as to where to have the capital, the work slowed down, and we also had to halt it from our own point of view. And then we are waiting for it to revive back or see how to go about the same. In Madhya Pradesh, when there was a change in regime, there was a change in priorities. When the previous regime thought to develop certain areas, the next regime thought to develop some other areas, and there were budgetary allocations were not to the extent that we thought, and we had to go slow on it. In Mumbai, for example, some of the big projects that we had, Coastal Road and Metro, went through a lot of public interest litigations and unnecessary ways of looking at it from our point of view. These are for the future of Mumbai. This is meant to ease the traffic in Mumbai. This is catered to the ever-growing lovely city that we have. But people had other views and went about going to courts, and this slowed down projects implementation by 6 to 7 months, and now we're catching up again. In Delhi, for the first time, you had the National Green Tribunal due to pollution issues stopping all construction activities in the entire national capital area. So these 4-5 incidents, which had not been anticipated, had not been thought about in this manner probably, which has never occurred before, tended to slow down projects in these 4 big areas that we had orders backlog, and thereby created nearly 6,000 to 7,000 crores of shortfall in sales and maybe 600 crores of shortfall in profit before tax and whatever it is.